look, let's get right down to it. That video caught me off guard. I was waiting for it to end, and I was looking at a book, and this book is what I'm going to talk to you about. It's called Left of Bang, and it is by Patrick Van Horn and Jason A. Riley. What is this book about? Well, we're going to get right to that later on in this video. Right now, I'm going to talk to you about the self-defense company. The self-defense company is the place to go when you want to talk about anything combatives. We don't do firearms shooting, but we do firearms retention and other weapons that that you can use as a force multiplier, right? So if you're interested, please give me a call, send me a text, email me, whatever you have to do, send a comment, whatever. And we can link up. I can send you a link to our online modules, or you and I personally can get on here without the view of all the other people in the world, and we can do some training online. Or if you're nearby in the Lafayette, Tennessee area and surrounding counties, we can do some in-person training where you can actually meet up with me and we can do some training. Now, let's talk about being left of bang. I'm just going to tell you right now, this is the book. This book right here is the book to get if you want to be a master of your surroundings. Okay, I hyped it up a little bit. You're not going to be a master of your surroundings, okay? But this gets you damn close. If you want to be Superman and bulletproof, let me tell you, it's not going to happen. You're going to get hurt out there. If you're in the profession of security, corrections, law enforcement, bodyguard, anything where you're possibly going to get into a physical conflict, chances are you are most likely going to get hurt in comparison to someone who is not in those fields. But self-defense equals self-preservation, just like the video showed, just like Damien was talking about. And if that is true, this book here is what will help you preserve that self. Now you're asking, you spent over a few minutes telling us to get this book, but you haven't told us what the book's about. What's the book about, Daniel? Okay. All right. Later on, we'll talk about the book. Right now, let's move on to the next topic today. The next topic is our social climate. Our social climate is so confusing because it's ever changing. It changes every day. There's something new that's going on in the news. It changes because something local, some new people come in to your area of residence. Sometimes new policies and laws will determine, or not determine, but influence the social dynamics. That's one reason why a lot of activists get out and they protest. That's the one reason a lot of people in the gun community, the Second Amendment community, lobby for Second Amendment rights to be secured, that there's no policies or laws that are written to take those rights away. So anything that changes within your environment can change your social climate. So why am I talking about the social climate of today? All right, social climate for today. And maybe I'm using the term wrong, but what I'm wanting to use this term for, social climate, is Just like the weather, sometimes you have sunny days, sometimes you have rainy days, sometimes you have snowy days, and sometimes you have hurricanes and floods and tornadoes and all that crap, right? And that's what we have in our social climate as well. Sometimes everything's going smooth, and sometimes things are not going so smooth. Sometimes they're rough. And when they get rough, if you don't have shelter, an umbrella, a jacket, just like in the weather, you could get cold, you could get frostbite, you could get sucked away by a tornado, you could get washed away by a flood. In the social climate, you could be caught in a riot. You could be caught in a a situation with a mental patient, somebody who maybe not even a patient, but lost their sense of reasoning, and because of that, they want to hurt you or someone around you, and you're caught in that. But just like the weather, it could be sunny, and then a rain cloud comes over, or a storm cloud comes over, and then it gets sunny again. So can the social climate. So can your day-to-day operations. Living as a human being, you might plan your day. Okay, I wake up in the morning, I'm going to drink my coffee. I want to make my bed, drink my coffee, brush my teeth, get dressed, go to work, come home, help my kids with the schoolwork, cook dinner, get them in bed and all that stuff. But that's your plan. But sometimes plans don't go right. Sometimes plans don't go as planned. Sometimes we get up, we brush our teeth, we make our bed, we get dressed, we drink our coffee, we go to work. But in that path of going to work, a flat tire happens, or okay, let's go with that. A flat tire happens. You make it to a gas station. They have an air pump. You get out of your car, and somebody says, "Hey, man, you got a light for the cigarette? You got some spare change?" Whatever it is, they're making their way. They're getting close to you, and then they attack you. Everything after that changes. Your day-to-day operation, your plan for the day has been altered by that social climate that caused that little bitty storm in your life. I bring that up because self-defense ain't just about the physical aspect. It's mainly the meat and potatoes of it is the mental aspect that a lot of self-defense instructors fail to teach you. Now, I'm not trying to put myself above any other self-defense instructor, because there's certainly better instructors out there than me. I'm certainly better than some others. It's not a competition, guys. What it is if you're interested in training with a company that knows their stuff, here we are. Email us, call us, text me, comment, whatever, reach out. And then we can discuss your concerns. But let's get back to the point. The point about the social climate is this: the weather can change. Your day-to-day operations can change, and you can be attacked at any point in time. But if you're situationally aware and you know the science, the chemistry that goes on in a person's mind before they attack you, maybe you can avoid that situation. And if you can't avoid that situation, maybe you can escape it. And lastly, if you can't avoid it and you can't escape it, maybe you can fight your way through and survive it, right? We always talk about the fight your way through to survive it, but it's limited out there about the how to avoid, what to avoid, really. Because it seems that that's common sense, that everybody knows to avoid that guy over there that has a mean face. Okay, cool. but you're focused on getting your child from the grocery shopping cart and into the car seat. And you're not focusing on the things behind you. And then what happens? You start hearing it. Hey, man. Hey, ma'am. Can you spare some change? Hey, man. Hey, ma'am. Do you got a light? Hey, ma'am. Hey, man. Do you have the time? Can you give me a ride? Stuff like that, right? And then it happens. We don't train that part of our mind to be, and I'm going to use this, tactfully inclined. I haven't heard that phrase anywhere, tactically inclined. So maybe I'm using it wrong. I just created it, I think. It's the first time I ever used it. Tactfully inclined. Okay, so some people have questioned me. Why do I generally park in the same area of a parking lot? A lot of times that goes behind what I talk about. I say don't create a pattern. But Daniel, you parking in the same part of the parking lot. Okay, yeah, for sure. I do. I park in the same area of the parking lot, but I don't all the time park in the same parking space. But if there is an advantage point to the area that I'm parking in, case in point, Walmart has the most cameras of any retail store I know. I generally like to park where the employees park. Generally, not all the time, but I do like to park where the employees park because I have a sense that if the employees are parking there, the cameras are probably going to be focused on those areas because no one wants their vehicle broken into. It's not always true. Okay. Most of the time, the cameras are going to be facing the where the most crime happens based on their statistics. I don't know what those statistics are, but because I don't know, I use the best knowledge I have about it, and I decide to park where the employees park because I believe that the managers and stuff like that are going to want to park out of the way of all the customers, and customers want to park where it's convenient. So typically, the employees will park further away from the store, making it more convenient for the customers to park closer to the doors. Because I'm parked further away than the doors or away, I have to walk. It kind of increases my chances of being attacked, right? For some, it could. I park in the same area, and I'm trying not to drag this point out. I'm really dragging it out, and I get it. Okay, I'm going to summarize it a little bit. I park in the same area, so for one, I don't forget where I parked at. All right. Yes, it makes a little bit of pattern, but if I change where I park at all the time, I will forget where I parked at, and I will be wandering around, probably with my kids in the cart or walking beside me, trying to find the car while someone is watching me planning their attack. So to be tactically inclined is to be planning, constantly planning, and changing your plans and adapting to your plans as the day-to-day operation it goes. Now, here's another thing. I sometimes will only have one or two items in my shopping cart, and I will still push my shopping cart to the car. I will still push my empty shopping cart to the car sometimes. Now, I won't do it all the time, but if I only have one or two items, I'll probably push the shopping cart, especially if I have my kids with me. Well, that's not cool, Daniel, because someone else could use that shopping cart. Yeah, they could, but Walmart has a lot of shopping carts. Okay, I'm not trying to be inconsiderate, but I want to make sure that especially if I have my kids with me, that I want to give the best chances of survival in the event that the worst case scenario like would to happen. Well, what does having a shopping cart with you, what kind of advantage does it gives you? It gives me distance. Okay. If something was to happen and I need to move, I can throw the kids in the cart and take off. Okay. If someone was to come at me, I can put this shopping cart in between me and that person, creating distance. In order for someone to impose their will upon you, they have to have that distance. They have to be close enough to control you. Well, that's not 100% true, Daniel, because they could have a gun. Yeah, that's true. But if I'm more than 7 feet away and they pull that gun in the middle of the daylight while everyone else is shopping, they're going to be seen. And what do we know about criminals? They don't want to be identified, they don't want to be caught, and they don't want to be hurt. Right? So there's more to it than being tactically inclined than just the shopping cart being there. I'm walking with confidence. I'm scanning the area. I'm showing that I see what's going around and I plan my day accordingly. If I watch the news and I hear that there's a big fire on the interstate that's blocked traffic for an hour and I need to be somewhere, do we take the interstate or do we take an alternate route? Generally, we take an alternate route. With that analogy, I bring you back to Left of Bang. Left of Bang is the book to get if you want to learn how to spot pre-threat cues, meaning what things to look for that could possibly be a threat. If you don't want to be late, you choose to take an alternate route. If you don't want to be hurt, you study the criminal mind, you study societal indicators of what people do when they're planning something off, when something is not right. You learn it, you learn everything about it. I'm going to give you, and you learn everything about it, and then you plan accordingly, right? Be tactfully inclined. This book right here was a military written book, is written for the military. I think the Marines, to be honest. All right, so I'm just going to go through the table of contents. All right, if I can, the pages are not working with me. Okay. Part 1, the War Lab. Okay, all right, cool. That sounds very cool. In part 1, you have 8 chapters. You have combat profiling is one of them. Being proactive and not reactive. That's important. That's what I talk about all the time. It talks about the re-engineering or re-engineering the toolkit, which is something in here that you really need to look into. And it talks about Cooper's color codes. You don't know what Cooper's color codes are. I'll talk about that in just a second. It talks about paralysis by analysis. In part 2, it's wherever or everywhere we go, there will be people. Yeah, that's for sure. Baselines and anomalies. It talks about how to come up with your baseline, your overall baseline, and then determine what is off center of that. So for an example, if everybody in the room was smiling and happy and looking to the left, but there was this one individual who was unhappy and looking to the right, okay, that guy, he might just, someone made fun of him, he wasn't happy, or he got a bad phone call, whatever it is, but it's not normal to that area. So we pay more attention to him. We decide if he's an actual threat. We may choose to go interview him, say, hey man, I noticed you're upset. What's going on with you? Or we might just leave. Okay. There's nothing wrong with that either. It's all about survival. And survival means being tactfully inclined and planning accordingly. Can't stress that enough. Planning accordingly and changing and adapting. All right. So moving on. What else does it talk about? It talks about, there's 5 parts. What was I just talking about? Part 2. Part 3, it's talking about the 6 domains. There's 6 of them. Talks about kinesics. Oh, hold on. Yep. Biometrics, proxemic. I can't say some of these words. But it talks about everything that you need to know. Part 3 is really important. You need to check that one out. Part 4 is taking action. It's kind of like gets into Hicks laws, talking about how the more actions that you, or the more choices that you have, the longer reaction time you have, or the longer your reaction time is, right? So if you have 5 choices, when something happens to you, you're going to take a longer amount of time to decide what's the best course of action. And if you had 1 or 2 choices to come up with, you're not going to take too long. And if you only had 1 choice, it's almost instantly, right? A guy that I watch, James Yeager, he mentioned that in one of his videos when he was talking, and he was talking about racking the slide of a pistol as opposed to hitting the thumb slide release, right? And why not to just mix it? Why just, he's saying why it's better to just rack the slide every single time. And the reason being is Hicks law that states that the more choices that you have, the longer your reaction times are. So if you're going to think about hitting that slide as opposed to hitting hitting the slide release, as opposed to hitting sliding the slide back every single time, having 2 choices increases that. And I agree with him. Just rack the slide. Off topic. Part 4 is that, and it talks about the rule of 3s, which is essential. Part 5, which is the last time, is part 5 brings it all together. I cannot stress this book enough. Okay. If you want to increase your situational awareness, increase your situational awareness. Left of Bang. How the Marine Corps' Combat Hunter program can save your life. Get this book. Start training.